Greetings, Athena the Witch 13 here. Haven't been on for a while. Unfortunately, been quite busy and sick at the same time, and so many things going on. But I wanted to reach out to you because it's been a while, and I have some books that I've been able to get my hands on recently. They seem very interesting, and so I thought I'd share some with you. Also, to answer your questions on astrology, tarot, and witchcraft. I'm a big fan of astrology. For those of you who don't know, I love delving into the stars and find what secrets they have for me. I myself, for example, I'm a Virgo. So, if you know anything about Virgos, I'm not quite sure I agree with some of the descriptions on Virgos. Not all Virgos are aloof, not all Virgos are detached. Actually, Virgos are quite the opposite. Some do, depending on where their stars and planets are. For example, for those of you who are not familiar, the zodiac belt, which is that round circle, um, I would describe it as a pie with 12 pieces, and each piece has 30 degrees in it of a constellation. So you would have, starting counterclockwise, Aries. Taurus would be the second house. The third would be Gemini. The fourth would be Cancer. And the fifth would be Leo. The sixth would be Virgo. The seventh would be Libra. The eighth would be Scorpio, which is really an interesting house on its own. Nine would be Sagittarius. 10th would be Capricorn. 11th would be Sagittarius. And then you have, your Pisces, which would be the 12th house. So if I said that right. But basically, the belt is 360 degrees. And so let's say I'm a Virgo, and my Virgo is based on my birth chart, okay? And so, you could take a magazine or a newspaper and go to the back, and they'll have all these generic sun sign evaluations, but that, again, is generic, okay? You will find a little bit of you in there based on your sign. But in order to really understand yourself, you really need a natal chart. And natal chart is based on the day you were born, the location you were born, the time you were born, whether AM or PM, and some people don't know the time that they were born. So it's kind of like a 2-hour stretch if you try and find out what you're nearest to. Sometimes it helps to ask relatives in the family, if your parents have passed away, maybe your relatives know, maybe a birth certificate has a time on it for you. That's another thing. But there are astrologers that really will be able to help you find the exact time. And that is just so interesting. What you discover about yourself based on your sign. There's signs of compatibility, like if you are thinking about dating someone and you want to know if, the two of you will get along. Again, you know, I'll say this. Some books will say, for example, you can only go with a fire sign if you're an air sign, okay? Because air, intensifies fire, okay? Some will say you can only go with a water sign, okay, if you're earth, because water nourishes earth, okay? And like I said, water douses fire, so it doesn't go good together, they say. But it all depends on where your planets are in the houses. And there's 12 houses. So I know that also each sign has an opposite, which they call opposition or polarity. So my opposition, which means an obstacle, a little difficult to deal with, would be Pisces. Well, not too far-fetched from that one, huh? I'm going to take this off because I'm getting a little hot here. But Pisces is the one with the two fish going back and forth, okay, in opposite directions. And Virgo is very analytical, very sharp, can multitask, is very detail-oriented, is grounded. So I'll give you an example. My deceased husband, God bless him, he was a Gemini. And he was a textbook Gemini, okay? The twin. I call it the good one and the evil one. Why do I say that? Because when the evil twin reared his head, it caused problems. So being the Virgo, when he was all the way here, because don't forget, Gemini is a air sign, very very out there, it's all in the mind, and they're very multitask, and they like to keep busy. They're people. They love to be in a crowd with other people. They will talk to anybody about anything. But they're very fickle. They can change their minds very quickly. You can go from being a happy-go-lucky Gemini 1 minute, and within seconds, snap, there goes that ugly head of that evil twin coming out and just blow up. Okay, that's the fire sign there, making its head known. Difficulty with a Gemini is that the worst thing for them is to be bored. They can get into all kinds of trouble being bored. You got to keep them busy. And they like that. But like I said, they're very out there. And Virgos are different in that sense. They're very low key. They like stability. They don't like that constant change. They like to know where they're treading. Whereas the Gemini is always trying to look for something else to do, where to go, what to do. Oh, I want to buy this today. And now I thought about it, but maybe I'll buy something else. They just keep changing their minds about everything. And when it comes to love, it's difficult to be with a Gemini in the sense that it may appear on the surface that they are selfish people, but in reality, they're not selfish people. They're just selfish with their time. So if a Gemini is involved in a project, for example, that's all that person can think about, okay, is getting that project, that job done. And you're not the focus of his attention or her attention at that time, okay? Which, if you are a needy person, or you feel that you need a partner that gives you more attention than that, it's not going to work out because they are an island on their own until they get whatever they have going on finished. They love to talk, they love to communicate. That's one thing I will say. So someone who bottles up their feelings, for example, and has a hard time demonstrating their feelings or talking about their feelings is an issue because Geminis love to talk. They have Mercury there for their communication, which the reason why my husband and I got along is because as a Virgo, I also have Mercury. So we love to communicate. There are things that we have in common, a lot of things we have in common. So that was a plus. And in order to deal with someone like a Gemini who has his foot in every direction possible, you have to be flexible. While he is up here, you have to be down here to balance the two. It's not always an easy thing because you don't want to be critical, because Virgos can be critical, okay? They're so detail oriented, they think things should be black and white. And sometimes, that's really hard because life isn't black and white. It's usually gray. So Virgos have to watch out about that too. They have issues there as well. They see things their way and have a difficult time about seeing someone else's way. So Virgos have to learn to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more open. They're introverts, whereas Geminis are extrovert. Okay. So I'm just talking about two signs right now, but I think you get it. Okay. They are lovely. If you can match them together, they're lovely. I would say that there's no such thing as two signs not getting along. Like I said, let's say, for example, I'm a fire sign and you're an earth sign. Most books say you won't get along. Well, not necessarily. Like I said, it depends on where your planets are placed in the house. Okay. And each house, it's incredible because each house represents something different. Okay. Like, for example, your sun sign is your personality, who you are, at the core. Okay. But then your rising sign is just above at the time of your placement of your birth. Okay. Now mine, like I told you, is Pisces. Okay. And it's also my opposite. So very intuitive. Pisces are very mystical, clairvoyant, clairsentient. How I can tell you, I'll walk into a room that's vacant, but I'll know the energy that was there before these people left, whoever was in there. Was it good energy? Was it not such good energy? I'll know it. I feel it. We're empaths. Okay, so we take on a lot of other people's feelings, emotions, which you have to be careful about because that does affect you internally. So a good idea is to, if you're in a crowd with a lot of people, I know I get to be somewhat nervous. Now, I don't go like that, but I can feel it inside. And it's what's telling me is you need to leave. You need to go home. You need to cleanse yourself because you've absorbed too much of energy from so many different people. That's why you'll never see me in a crowd. You'll never see me at a ball game or football game, or, I mean, even when I go to the mall, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I go in, I get it, and I'm out. Yeah, what can I tell you? That's what happens when you're an empath. Um, and so when you take on all these energies, okay, like I said, I start to get fidgety inside. I can feel myself, acting out. Some people get headaches. You know, some people start having twitches with their eyes. You know, people feel differently. You know, um, we're sensitive. Virgos are sensitive, and if you have Pisces, and I got it double. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, as a Virgo, my sun is in Virgo, my moon is in Virgo, my Mercury's in Virgo. Um, yeah, but then I have rising Pisces, and my opposition is also Pisces. So I'm kind of sometimes in turmoil with the Virgo who wants to do things one way, and Pisces is kind of like saying, I don't know about that. Has to stick her 2 senses in there. Um, so, what, as analytical as I am as a Virgo, I will draw a line. And on one side, I'll write the positive aspects of why I want to do something and the not so good aspects of why I shouldn't do it. And then I draw my conclusions. What can I tell you? Geminis don't do that. Geminis rush without thinking. Okay. So in my husband's case, his birthday was June 19th. So he was on the cups of Cancer. So he was more family oriented. Everything was family to him. But again, he could be very detached and lost in his own thoughts because that's where he lives, in his brain. He's out there, you know. And so you have to be the type of person who's flexible and understanding and waits for the right moment to actually discuss things, okay, of a certain nature, because like I said, they're too busy thinking about other things. Um, so astrology can really help you in finding out your strengths, your weaknesses. It all depends on how the planets interact with each other in those houses. So if you have a square, 4 planets square, that's a problem, you know. If you have a conjunct, that's okay. But it really is interesting to learn. I mean, you could go so in depth with astrology. I, for one, love to look at my chart and then take the planets where they are and then go to the houses where they are and then look at what's going on there, because each house represents something different. Okay. Um, for example, we talk about the moon. Okay. As a Virgo, I am because I have the moon in my chart, I am very close to the moon, okay, to the lady, okay. And it also means relationship with your mother. Now, I did not have the greatest relationship with my mom. I was closer to my father. I could tell my father anything. I couldn't do that with my mother. My mother was cold and aloof. She was a Capricorn. She was an earth sign. But she had other issues. She was not a very healthy person. And she didn't have the patience that was needed for a very active child like I was. Because the Pisces in me made me into a dreamer. And I would get in trouble in school all the time. And the teacher would say, Angelina, pay attention, stop dreaming. It was very easy for me to get away. Okay. Which brings me to Pisces being very close to the occult. Okay. I have dreams. Now, something happened some years ago, and I had a premonition. And that premonition, I could not understand what the outcome was. And I blamed myself for a very long time. I felt that I should have been able to connect the dots, and I didn't. And because of that, my niece died. Now, when that happened, I screamed bloody murder and said, I don't want to know anything about anyone. Don't send me any messages. I don't want to be involved. I mean, to the core, I didn't want to have anything to do with premonitions anymore. Well, I got my wish. Things stopped coming. Mm-hmm. So now I will say that I understand better. I understand that, unfortunately, I was not supposed to intervene. If you think about it, we come into this world with the contract that we signed and why we're coming to this world. What is it that we have to do? What we didn't finish the last time, or we're coming back for quite, various reasons. The thing is, sign that contract, we come into this world, but we don't remember what we signed. And it's a good thing, because we have to relive and do better than what we did the last time. It's for our own personal growth, for our soul. So I think if we did remember, it wouldn't be beneficial. It would be the opposite. So I know for a fact that when I met my deceased husband, I instantly knew. Our eyes met and we saw our souls. It was a window. Do you know how they say your eyes are the windows of the soul? They are. And I said to my husband, who was someone I just met, I know you. I said, I just know you. It's like we've met before. And he said, I know, I have the same feeling. And as the conversation went on, we both said it feels so comfortable talking to each other. And for me, I said, if I was to describe it to anyone, I would say it's like meeting an old friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and you were just so happy to meet that person again. And months down the line, my husband said, I prayed to God for an angel, And he sent me one, you. And I got goosebumps because I said I did too. I prayed for God to send me an angel, and he did. He sent me you. So, for those of you who have loved and lost a loved one, know that they're still here. They're not in the physical, but they're in the spirit. They're with you. And love never dies, even on the other side. It just doesn't. Now, we probably did live together in another life. It could have been, I could have been his sister, he could have been my brother, or he could have been my father, and I could have been his child, or vice versa. But we knew. Let's put it that way. And sometimes you don't know why you know, but you know. Okay? And so when he passed, I lost the best thing in my life. It was like half of me was gone. I feel his presence. I know he's watching over me. But the pain of not having him in the physical every day is hard. Now it's been 14 months. On the 13th, it will be 14 months that he passed. And I still struggle with it. Yeah. And I think anyone who has loved will understand that. I know he wants me to move forward, and I'm trying. Will I want to meet someone else? No, not really. He gave me enough love to last me a lifetime. And I think it's time that I spend time on myself. And I think anyone who's taking care of a loved one through sickness, illness, will understand that you really didn't have time for you because you were too busy caring for your loved one. And I have the responsibility now of taking care of 4 dogs and a cat on my own. And these are not small dogs. These are labs, pretty big. But they're my babies. They're my fur babies. And they bring me great joy. They help me navigate through all of this, you know. It has not been easy. It has not been easy. But I have memories. I have great memories. And like any marriage, there are ups and downs, okay? My husband did not understand my interest in the occult. But then, little by little, the jokester that he was, he would say to people, yeah, my wife's a witch. And people would go, yeah, aren't we all, taking it as a joke? And he goes, I'm serious, my wife's a witch. And some people, it just went right over their head. And I would just stand there and just smile, what can I say? And you might say, well, as a witch, couldn't you do something to spare your husband? It wasn't for me to do. It was his time. We all have a time. It's that contract that we signed. And when you understand that, then it is easier to accept. Now, I don't know why I came. Part of me thinks that, and here I go back to astrology, there is something called the North Node and the South Node. The South Node is your karmic experience. What you did in the past, okay, is now going to be played